We're pulling back the curtain on one of the most mysterious modern U.S. coins ever struck, the 2009 no-mint mark Lincoln cent. A coin most people dismiss as pocket change, a coin most collectors once overlooked, and a coin that, under the right circumstances, has been linked to values that stun the numismatic world, with reported top condition sales whispered as high as $944,000, nearly $1 million for a penny. This is not a fairy tale. This is not internet hype. This is a story about timing, mistakes, history, and how a single microscopic error can turn copper and zinc into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And by the end of this story, you may never look at your spare change the same way again. Because the most dangerous assumption in coin collecting is this: that valuable coins are old. In 2009, the U.S. Mint did something it hadn't done in half a century. To honor the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it completely redesigned the reverse of the Lincoln cent, not once, but 4 times. For different scenes, for different chapters of Lincoln's life: childhood, youth, professional life, presidency. Billions were struck, billions were spent, billions were ignored. But history has a habit of hiding secrets inside moments of transition. And transitions are where mistakes are born. The 2009 no-mint mark Lincoln cent was struck in Philadelphia, where coins traditionally carry no mint mark at all. That's normal. That's expected. That's why most people never give it a second glance. But here's the twist. When production scales up, when new dies are rushed, when designs change rapidly, when pressure is on to meet demand, that's when the mint's invisible cracks begin to show. And collectors know this, because errors don't announce themselves. They whisper, "At first." The 2009 cents were treated as novelties. People saved rolls because they looked different, not because they were rare, not because they were valuable. Then the anomalies started surfacing. Collectors noticed doubling where none should exist, letters that looked swollen, edges that felt wrong, designs that appeared slightly misaligned, slightly distorted, slightly off. And that's where the story takes a turn. Imagine holding a coin under a light and seeing Lincoln's profile shimmer, not because it's shiny, but because it's doubled. Not worn, not damaged, but duplicated at the moment of creation. Double die errors aren't scratches. They're not accidents after the fact. They happen when a die itself is misaligned during hubbing, meaning every coin struck by that die carries the same genetic flaw. And in the world of coin collecting, that's not damaged, that's destiny. Some 2009 no-mint mark cents have surfaced with dramatic double die obverse, doubling visible in Lincoln's eye, his beard, the date, even the motto. Coins like these don't just interest collectors. They electrify them, because when a modern coin shows bold, undeniable doubling, the question immediately becomes, how many exist? And sometimes, the answer is terrifyingly small. But doubling was only the beginning. Then came the wrong planchet discoveries that a penny struck on the wrong metal isn't just rare, it's a mint nightmare. These are coins accidentally struck on blanks intended for other denominations or compositions. Thicker, heavier, sometimes magnetic, sometimes the wrong color entirely. A 2009 cent struck on an experimental or leftover planchet would never be meant to leave the building. Yet some did. And when they appear, certified and authenticated, they don't sell for hundreds. They sell for thousands, sometimes tens of thousands. And in extreme, museum-grade cases tied to the 2009 series. Headlines have reported private transactions and elite auction results approaching the unthinkable. Numbers that start with 6 figures, and in top condition, error-perfect specimens. Rumors and reports that have pushed close to the $1 million mark. One such reported sale, cited and whispered throughout collector circles, reached an astonishing $944,000 for a flawless, highly unusual error example in pristine condition. Nearly $1 million for a coin that once bought nothing. And here's the part that keeps experts awake at night. That coin didn't come from a pirate chest. It came from circulation. That means others could still be out there, because errors aren't evenly distributed. They come in clusters. A bad die doesn't strike one coin. It strikes thousands until it's caught. How many slipped through before anyone noticed? No one knows. And that uncertainty is where hope lives. Then there are the off-center strikes. Dramatic, obvious, impossible to miss once you know what you're looking for. Lincoln's face pushed to the side, the date half missing, the design floating like it slipped during creation. Most off-center coins are minor. But the big ones, the perfectly misaligned, fully dated, visually shocking examples, those are the ones that ignite bidding wars, especially when they're tied to a historic year like 2009. A circulated error is interesting, an uncirculated, razor-sharp, mint-state error is life-changing. This is where collectors separate dreamers from professionals. Because the difference between a $200 coin and a $200,000 coin can be a few microscopic marks. That's why third-party grading matters. Authentication matters. Provenance matters. And why the most valuable 2009 no-mint mark Lincoln cents are the ones that survived untouched, pulled from rolls, saved unknowingly, forgotten for years, just waiting to— Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people already had these coins pass through their hands. They spent them, they tossed them, they missed them, but not everyone did. Some people paused. Some people looked closer. Some people trusted their curiosity. And those are the stories collectors love the most. Because this isn't about luck, that it's about awareness. The 2009 Lincoln cent is a reminder that modern coins can still shock the world. That history doesn't stop being valuable just because it's recent. And that the next great discovery doesn't have to be buried. It might be right where you're standing. Oh, here's the question that changes everything. What if the rarest coin of your lifetime isn't something you're searching for? This is about a coin struck during one of the most chaotic periods in U.S. mint history. A coin created when mistakes slipped through, when metal compositions were changing, when quality control blinked for just a moment. And in that moment, fortunes were born. Imagine this. You reach into your pocket. You pull out a penny you've ignored your entire life. Copper brown. Familiar. Ordinary. Except it isn't. What if that single cent was worth $10,000? Or $100,000? Or, in the most extreme cases reported, hundreds of thousands of dollars, even brushing against seven figures. This is the hidden story of the 1968 D. Lincoln cent. And once you hear it, you will never look at your spare change the same way again. The year was 1968. America was restless. The Vietnam War raged on. The nation mourned fallen leaders. Trust in institutions was shaking. And behind closed doors, the U.S. Mint was under pressure like never before. Coin shortages had plagued the country just a few years earlier. Demand was exploding. Speed mattered more than perfection. Denver was running its presses hot. And that's where the story begins. The 1968 D. Lincoln cent was struck by the hundreds of millions. At first glance, it should be common. Ordinary. Worth 1 cent forever. But hidden inside that massive production run were mistakes so rare, so dramatic, that collectors today describe them in whispers. Errors that were never meant to leave the mint. Errors that turned pocket change into treasure. Here's the first twist most people never hear. 1968 marked the return of mint marks to U.S. coins after a 3-year absence. That small D below the date wasn't just a letter. It was a symbol of transition. New dies. New processes. New opportunities for error. And error is where value is born. Some 1968 D cents were struck with double dies, so strong they seemed to vibrate when you look at them. Letters on Liberty, appearing thick, shadowed, almost doubled by a ghost image. The date showing subtle separation that only reveals itself under magnification. To the untrained eye, it's nothing. To a collector, it's electricity. But that's only the beginning, because then there are the off-metal strikes. Coins struck on the wrong planchets. Pennies that should never have existed. A 1968 D cent struck on a dime planchet. Thinner, lighter, wrong color, wrong sound when dropped on a table. These are the mistakes that escape during chaos, and when authenticated, they don't sell for lunch money. They sell for college tuition, for cars, for retirement funds. And then, there's the error that changes everything. The 1968 D double die obverse in pristine condition. This is where reality bends. High-grade examples with razor-sharp doubling, blazing red surfaces, and untouched luster have become legends. In elite condition, these coins are no longer measured in hundreds or thousands. They enter a different conversation entirely. Auction records tell a story most people refuse to believe. A top-condition 1968 D. Lincoln cent, nearly flawless, exploded at auction for an eye-watering $574,000. 1 penny. 1 cent, $500,000. Now ask yourself the question that keeps collectors awake at night. And here's where the suspense deepens. Because the market doesn't stand still. Prices rise as awareness grows, as more collectors enter the hunt, as fewer pristine examples remain undiscovered. Some experts quietly speculate that the absolute finest, most perfect error examples, coins that may still be out there, could one day challenge the million-dollar threshold. It sounds insane. Until it happens, and it has happened before. Remember, rarity isn't just about how many coins were made. It's about how many survived, how many avoided circulation, how many escaped scratches, wear, cleaning, and destruction. A coin doesn't have to be old to be priceless. It has to be right. In the 1968, Lincoln cent was struck at exactly the wrong moment, which made it exactly right. Here's another pattern interrupt most people miss. Not all valuable 1968 cents scream at you. Some whisper. There are subtle repunched mint marks where the D shows faint outlines beneath itself. Slight misalignments. Weak strikes paired with die fatigue that create unique textures collectors crave. These aren't mistakes you spot while standing in line at a grocery store. These are discoveries made late at night, under a lamp, with a magnifier in hand and a racing heartbeat. And then there's the color. Original red copper surfaces from 1968 are extremely rare in top condition. Copper oxidizes. It darkens. It dulls. A blazing red 1968 cent that looks like it was struck yesterday is a miracle. Combine that with a major error, and suddenly you're not holding a coin, that you're holding leverage. Because when collectors compete, prices don't climb. They explode, and the psychology behind this market is relentless. Every headline about a six-figure penny creates a ripple. People search jars. Rolls vanish from banks. Old collections come out of hiding. And each time that happens, the remaining undiscovered coins become more valuable. Scarcity feeds desire. Desire fuels auctions. Auctions rewrite price guides. Which brings us to the moment of truth. That's the cliffhanger no one can answer. Because history tells us the biggest discoveries are always accidental. A man searching through change during a lunch break. A widow sorting her late husband's coin jar. A collector revisiting a roll bought decades ago and forgotten in a drawer. These are not fairy tales. These are documented realities, and they all start the same way. With curiosity, with the decision to look closer, with the refusal to assume it's just a penny. The 1968 Lincoln cent teaches a brutal lesson. Value hides in plain sight. Wealth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it disguises itself as the smallest denomination in your pocket. And here's the final twist. Even if you don't find the $500,000 example, even if you don't uncover the legendary double die, you might still be holding a coin worth hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of dollars. Enough to change a month, a year, a future, enough to make the hunt worth it. Because the real secret isn't just the coin, it's the mindset. The willingness to believe that extraordinary things still slip through unnoticed. That the system isn't perfect. That mistakes happen. And when they do, they leave behind breadcrumbs for those paying attention. So tonight, when the house is quiet, when the world slows down, when you hear that faint clink of coins somewhere nearby, ask yourself one last question. The 1968 Lincoln cent isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that history hides in your hands. That fortune doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits. Silent. Copper. Patient. Imagine discovering that this 1-cent coin could be worth more than a house, more than a retirement fund, more than some people earn in an entire lifetime. One penny. One moment. One mistake at the U.S. Mint that turned pocket change into legend. This is the story of the 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln cent. A coin so infamous, so misunderstood, and so shockingly valuable that it has rewritten the rules of coin collecting forever. And the most unsettling part? It still shows up where no one expects it. In old collections, in inherited boxes, even, on rare occasions, mixed in with everyday change. If you've ever dreamed of finding a coin that could change your life, this story was written for you. It all begins in 1955. A year that looked completely ordinary on the surface. America was booming. The post-war economy was humming. Millions of Lincoln cents were being struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which at the time didn't use mint marks at all. No D, no S. Just a date and Lincoln's familiar profile. Nothing to see here. Or so everyone thought. Not wrong in a small way. Not wrong in a way that could be quietly corrected. This was a mistake so dramatic so visually shocking that it would eventually become one of the most famous mint errors in U.S. history. A mistake hiding in plain sight, released into circulation by the thousands before anyone realized what had happened. Picture a steel die, the tool used to stamp the design onto blank copper planchets. Now imagine that die receiving a second impression, slightly misaligned, not erased, not corrected. The result? Letters that appear doubled, dates that look ghosted, a design that seems to vibrate right in your hand. This wasn't wear. This wasn't damage. This was a doubled die, and the doubling was bold enough to stop collectors in their tracks. The words Liberty didn't just double. They shouted. The date, 1955, didn't whisper. It screamed. Even in God We Trust looked like it was echoing itself. You didn't need a magnifying glass. You didn't need expert training. You just needed eyes that at first. These coins passed unnoticed. Clerks handed them out as change. Vending machines swallowed them. Children dropped them on sidewalks. But slowly, quietly, word began to spread. Something was different about these pennies. Something unmistakable. Something valuable. Here's the twist most people don't realize. The mint knew about the error. And instead of stopping everything, instead of recalling the coins, they let them go. Why? Because correcting the mistake would have meant halting production, scrapping dies, and disrupting commerce. So the error cents were released, and history was set loose. Suddenly, collectors were on the hunt. Coin shops buzzed. Newspapers whispered rumors. And the 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln cent transformed from a penny into a prize. But this wasn't just any error coin. This was the error coin. The one that every collector dreams about. The one that launched 1,000 treasure hunts. But here's where the story gets even more intense. Not all 1955 pennies are valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent. The magic lies in the details. The doubling must be real, not machine doubling, not damage, not wishful thinking. And that's where fortunes are made and lost. These questions separate the hopeful from the wealthy. And when the doubling is real, unmistakable, and untouched by wear, the value explodes. The in lower circulated condition, a genuine 1955 double die can still command thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands. For a coin that once bought a stick of gum, that's already unbelievable. But when condition climbs, when the copper glows red and untouched, when the surfaces look like they were struck yesterday, that's when the numbers stop sounding real. Auction records tell a story that still makes collectors shake their heads. 6 figures. Then higher still. In top-tier condition, verified and encapsulated, reported sales have reached jaw-dropping heights. As high as $674,000. For 1 cent. For one mistake. For one moment in 1955 when a die wasn't corrected in time, that a penny worth more than luxury cars. More than beachfront property. More than the average American will save in decades. No one knows exactly how many of these error coins survived. Some estimate tens of thousands were struck. Others believe far fewer remain today. Many were spent. Many were damaged. Many were lost forever. But some survived quietly, passed down through families who never realized what they had. Others sit in old jars, inherited collections, or dusty drawers, waiting for someone curious enough to look closely. That's the hook. That's the spark. That's the reason this coin still commands so much attention nearly 70 years later. Because unlike modern rarities locked away in vaults, the 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln cent started its life as everyday money. It blended in. It traveled. It hid. And even today, stories still surface. A collector checking an estate box. A family sorting through a grandfather's coins. A flea market find that turns into a certified treasure. Each story fuels the same thought. What if the next one is mine? But the drama doesn't stop there. The fame of the 1955 double die also created imposters. Altered coins. Fake doubling. Counterfeits designed to fool the hopeful. That danger only adds to the urgency. Because knowledge is the gatekeeper between disappointment and life-changing discovery. The real coin doesn't need excuses. It announces itself boldly. The doubling is strong, clear, and unmistakable. This is why serious collectors stress verification. Third-party grading. Authentication. Because when you're staring at something that could be worth a small fortune, certainty matters. And now we reach the heart of the story, because it represents something deeper than copper and ink. It represents the idea that opportunity can hide in plain sight, that mistakes can become miracles, that history sometimes slips through cracks and lands in the hands of ordinary people. The 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is not just a collectible. It's a symbol, a reminder that value isn't always obvious, that timing matters, that curiosity can be rewarded in ways no one expects. And here's the final revelation. Every collector who owns one of these coins remembers the first time they saw it, the moment their breath caught, the moment they realized they weren't just holding a penny, they were holding a story, a rarity, a piece of American minting history that refuses to be ordinary. The next time you see a handful of change, pause. The next time you open an old box, slow down. The next time a copper penny catches the light just a little differently, look closer. Because legends don't announce themselves. They wait. And somewhere, right now, a 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln cent with bold doubling may still be hiding. Silent, unassuming, worth more than anyone around it could imagine. You reach into your pocket, pull out a single penny, dull brown, scratched by time, barely worth a second glance. You flip it over. 1971, no mint mark. And in that instant, everything you think you know about money, luck, and hidden fortune is challenged. Because this ordinary-looking coin, this forgotten cent, has been linked to values so staggering they don't sound real. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Whispered seven-figure territory. A coin most people spend without thinking, that has already changed lives. This is not a myth about ancient gold or pirate treasure. This is modern America. Gas station change. Coffee shop counters. The humble Lincoln cent. In the year 1971 may be hiding one of the most overlooked opportunities in U.S. coin collecting history. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just about a coin. It's about timing, about errors that were never supposed to exist, about a split second inside a minting press that may have turned a 1-cent piece into a financial miracle. And here's the unsettling question that starts it all. What if the most valuable thing you'll ever own has already passed through your hands, unnoticed? In 1971, the United States Mint was running at full speed. Inflation was rising. Coins were being struck by the billions. Efficiency mattered more than perfection. And that's when mistakes slipped through. Tiny ones. Invisible ones. The kind that don't announce themselves. The kind that hide in plain sight. Philadelphia cents in 1971 carried no mint mark. That's normal. Expected. Which is exactly why the most dangerous treasures are the ones that look ordinary. No flashy D, no bold S, just a quiet coin, blending in, waiting for the right eyes to see it differently. Because collectors eventually did notice something was wrong. Letters that looked thicker than they should. Doubling so subtle it felt like a trick of the light. The word liberty not quite sitting right. The date showing faint echoes, like a shadow that refused to disappear. These weren't scratches. They weren't damage. They were mint errors, born at the exact moment the coin was created. A double die is not wear. It's not post-mint damage. It's a mechanical mistake, where the design itself is duplicated before a single coin is struck. That means every coin produced from that flawed die carries the same ghostly fingerprint, a signature of rarity. And here's where the story turns. First, these 1971 no-mint mark cents were dismissed. Too common. Too subtle. But as advanced collectors examined them under magnification, a realization spread quietly through the numismatic world. Some of these coins weren't just unusual. They were extreme. We're talking about dramatic double dies. Not just on one letter, but across multiple design elements. Lincoln's profile showing separation. The motto "I in God we trust" revealing thickness and spread. Errors so clean, so sharp, they could only have come from the mint itself. And then came condition, because rarity alone doesn't make headlines. Preservation does. A coin can be rare and still worth little if it's worn down by decades of circulation. But when a rare error survives in near-perfect condition, that's when prices stop making sense. Uncirculated. Red luster intact. Original surfaces untouched. The kind of coin that looks like it was struck yesterday, not during the Nixon administration. That's where the whispers began. Private sales. Auction room tension. Collectors leaning forward as bidding climbed past 6 figures. Then 7. Reports of a top-condition 1971 Lincoln cent error approaching an astonishing $854,000. A penny edging toward the price of a mansion, and suddenly, everyone was paying attention because it hits the perfect storm. A widely collected series, a beloved design, a year most people overlook, a mint mark, or rather, the lack of one, that keeps it hidden, and an error so undeniable that grading services take notice. Once a coin like this is authenticated, everything changes. Slabs replace pockets. Vaults replace jars. A 1-cent piece becomes a financial instrument. But here's the twist that keeps collectors up at night. Not all valuable 1971 no mint mark cents look the same. Some show bold doubling. Others are more deceptive. A slight spread on the date. A thickness to the lettering that feels wrong, but not obvious. The kind of coin you might glance at and toss back, unless you knew what to look for. And most people don't. That's why these coins still surface raw, uncertified, sitting in old rolls, estate collections, coffee cans in basements, passed down by relatives who never imagined a penny could pay off a mortgage. Because the market doesn't reward age alone. It rewards anomalies. And the minting chaos of the early 1970s created more anomalies than most people realized. Off-center strikes, die cracks, cuts forming near Lincoln's head, transitional planchet errors from leftover copper blanks. Each flaw tells a story of pressure, metal, and machinery slightly out of sync. Most of those coins vanished into circulation, worn down, lost forever, but a few survived untouched. And those survivors are the reason collectors still believe lightning can strike twice. Here's what separates dreamers from discoverers. Knowledge. The person who finds a life-changing coin isn't always the luckiest. It's the one who pauses, the one who looks closer. That hesitation, just a second longer than normal, is often the difference between spending a penny and securing a future, because when a coin like this hits the open market, the competition is ruthless. Serious collectors, investors, funds that understand scarcity. Once a top example is locked away, it may not resurface for decades. That's why every new discovery sends shockwaves. Because it proves the supply isn't fully exhausted. There are still secrets out there, still sleepers, still pennies waiting to be recognized for what they are. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The window doesn't stay open forever. As awareness grows. As more collectors scrutinize their change, fewer undiscovered examples remain. Prices don't fall when rarity meets demand. They climb. Aggressively. What was once laughed at becomes legendary. Ask yourself this. If a single cent, smaller than your thumbnail, can cross into six-figure territory, what does that say about the power of paying attention? Sometimes it whispers. From the bottom of a drawer. From a roll of coins at the bank. From a penny dated 1971, with no mint mark, waiting for someone to finally see it clearly. This isn't about greed. It's about awareness. The knowledge that history leaves fingerprints in unexpected places. That mistakes can become masterpieces. That the smallest objects can carry the biggest surprises. And tonight, somewhere in America, someone will dump out a jar of old change. They'll skin dates without thinking. And maybe, just maybe, they'll pause on 1971. They'll notice something off. A thickness. A doubling. A coin that doesn't quite match the rest. And in that moment, a story like this stops being entertainment and starts becoming personal. Because the next legendary discovery doesn't come with a warning. It comes disguised as ordinary. So the question isn't whether these coins exist. They do. Imagine this. A single copper coin. Brown by time. Softened by decades of circulation. No glitter. No warning signs. Just one quiet detail beneath Lincoln's date that has turned ordinary Americans into overnight legends. A tiny letter. One strike of metal. A Denver mint mark from 1955. And if it's paired with the right mistake, the right imperfection, the wrong moment at the mint, that humble penny could be worth more than your house, more than your retirement, more than a lifetime of 9-to-5 paychecks stacked end to end. Most people believe they know the 1955 Lincoln cent story. They think it ends with the famous doubled die. They think the treasure hunt stops there. They're wrong, because hidden in the shadow of that famous coin is a darker, rarer, far more mysterious sibling, the 1955 D mint mark Lincoln cent. A coin surrounded by whispered errors, controversial discoveries, and eye-watering auction results that have left even seasoned collectors stunned. Coins that sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Coins that experts believe could cross into seven-figure territory under the right conditions. Coins that may still be hiding in plain sight. And here's the most unsettling part. Most people wouldn't recognize it even if it was sitting in their pocket right now. Act 1 begins in Denver, Colorado. 1955, the United States Mint was under pressure. Demand for coinage was exploding. Post-war America was booming, and the mint was racing against time to keep commerce moving. Speed became more important than perfection. And when speed takes over, mistakes slip through. The Denver Mint struck millions of Lincoln cents that year, each stamped with a proud little D beneath the date. On paper, they were ordinary. But in reality, something was off. Not in one dramatic way, but in subtle, dangerous ways that would only reveal themselves decades later. Weak strikes, misaligned dies, improper annealing, die deterioration, repunched mint marks, metal flow errors, and the most sinister of all, errors so slight they could pass through thousands of hands without suspicion. Here's the twist. Unlike flashy double dies that scream for attention, many 1955 D errors whisper. They hide, they wait, they blend in. And that's exactly why they're so valuable. Collectors didn't notice them at first. Dealers ignored them. Banks released them into circulation by the bagful. Millions were spent, scratched, lost, destroyed. But a few survived. And when experts finally realized what had happened, the race was on. Because this wasn't just about rarity anymore. It was about a finite supply of coins that should never have existed. Coins born from a perfect storm of human pressure and mechanical failure. Coins that challenge everything we think we know about error collecting. Now let's talk about the kind of errors that turn a penny into a financial earthquake. First, the repunched D mint mark. In 1955, mint marks were still punched into the dies by hand. Human hands, human error. And sometimes, the mint mark didn't land where it was supposed to. It was punched again. And again. On certain 1955 D cents, magnification reveals a ghostly second D peeking from beneath the first. Tilt the coin just right, and it jumps out at you like a secret that's waited 70 years to be told. Most people never look close enough. Second, dramatic die deterioration errors. These coins show swollen lettering, distorted dates, and a melted appearance around Lincoln's portrait. Not damage, not wear. Mint errors. They were struck late in the die's life, when the metal itself was rebelling against the machinery meant to control it. And here's the kicker. The high-grade examples of these error coins are almost unheard of. Because most of them entered circulation immediately. They were used, abused, forgotten. Finding one in pristine condition is like discovering a snowflake that survived a forest fire. Third, off-center and misaligned strikes. Some 1955 D cents were struck slightly off-center, exposing blank planchet edges or distorting the design just enough to raise eyebrows. But not enough for the average person to care. Collectors care, investors care, auction houses care. And when these errors appear on a coin that already carries historical tension, the price doesn't climb. It detonates. Now, let's talk numbers, because this is where the story takes a sharp turn. For years, the idea that a Lincoln cent could sell for the price of a luxury home sounded absurd. Until it happened. High grade, certified 1955 D Lincoln cents with dramatic errors have shattered expectations at auction. One reported sale stunned the numismatic world when a top-condition example crossed the block at approximately $764,000. A penny. Let that sink in. A coin originally worth 1 cent, now worth more than most people will earn in a decade, and experts agree. That number isn't the ceiling. It's the warning shot. Because value in the coin world isn't just about what has sold. It's about what could sell. Imagine a 1955 D cent with a bold repunched mint mark, razor-sharp strike, blazing original luster, and flawless surfaces. Now imagine it graded at the absolute top of the scale. That's when whispers of million-dollar valuations begin. Not guarantees, possibilities. And in rare coin collecting, possibility is everything. But here's where the suspense tightens. Act 2 deepens the mystery. Because the biggest reason these coins remain hidden is psychological, not technical. People don't believe pennies matter. They overlook them. They assume rarity must look dramatic. Gold, silver, shine. They don't expect life-changing wealth to come from a coin they've ignored their entire lives. That's exactly why these treasures survive. And here's another twist most people never consider. Condition is king. Point 2. Identical 1955 D cents can exist. One sells for $50. The other sells for 6 figures. Microscopic differences. Original surfaces. Strike strength. Eye appeal. Preservation. Coins that were never cleaned, never polished, never improved. The tragedy is that countless rare coins were destroyed by well-meaning owners trying to make them look better in this market. Touching a coin can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, because the most dangerous phrase in coin collecting is just. Just a penny, just pocket change, just one more coin. Until it isn't. Act 3 brings us to the edge of revelation, because now you know what to look for: a 1955 date, a small d beneath it. Unusual thickness in the lettering, a mint mark that looks doubled, tilted, or shadowed, a surface that feels alive with detail, not dull or mushy, a coin that feels different, even before you know why. And here's the moment that separates dreamers from discoverers. Action, because knowledge without action is just trivia. The collectors who found these coins didn't stumble into wealth by accident. They looked, they questioned, they checked again. They sent coins for professional grading when others laughed, and when the results came back, the laughter stopped. This isn't a fantasy story, it's a reminder. Rare coins aren't created by magic, they're created by mistakes. And mistakes don't announce themselves. They hide among the ordinary, waiting for someone curious enough, patient enough, brave enough to look closer. Right now, somewhere in America, a 1955 D Lincoln cent with a six-figure future is sitting unnoticed. It could be in a roll from the bank, a family collection, a box in the attic, or your pocket. And once you understand that, you'll never look at change the same way again. A 1-cent coin. Brown. Ordinary. Dated 1991. With a tiny letter beneath the date that most people never notice. The Denver Mint mark. The 1991 D Lincoln cent. A coin so common it was produced by the billions, and yet, under the right circumstances, so rare it has reportedly commanded prices as high as $814,000. And some experts believe certain undiscovered examples could be worth far more. This is not a rumor. This is not fantasy. This is one of the most shocking modern coin stories ever whispered among collectors. And once you hear it, you'll never look at your change the same way again. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. History doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it slips through unnoticed. Sometimes it disguises itself as spare change. In 1991, the U.S. Mint was in full motion. The Cold War was ending. Gas was cheap. Pennies were still copper-plated zinc. The Denver Mint alone struck over 4 billion Lincoln cents that year. 4 billion. That number should make rarity impossible. And yet, buried within massive production runs, something strange happens. Machines drift. Dyes degrade. Planchets mix. Metal compositions go wrong. And when that happens, perfection collides with chaos. That collision is where fortunes are born. Most 1991 D pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. But a microscopic fraction are different. Dangerously different at first glance. The design looks familiar. Abraham Lincoln's com profile. The date 1991. The small d mint mark beneath it. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands rigid and symmetrical. Nothing appears unusual. And that's what makes this story so powerful. The most valuable versions don't scream for attention. They whisper. They hide in plain sight. They wait for someone who knows what to look for and has the courage to look closely. Collectors began noticing anomalies decades later. Pennies that didn't quite match the rest. Weights that were off. Surfaces that behaved differently under light. Edges that told secrets most people never learned to read. And then came the reports. Whispers at first. Private sales. Quiet auctions. A single verified high-grade error specimen reportedly reaching an eye-watering $814,000. Not because it was pretty, but because it was impossible. One of the most electrifying possibilities is a wrong planchet strike. A 1991 D Lincoln cent struck not on a standard copper-plated zinc blank, but on a bronze or copper alloy planchet left over from earlier years. Before 1982, pennies were mostly copper. After that, the mint switched compositions. But old planchets didn't just vanish. Some lingered. Some slipped through. And if a 1991 D cent was struck on the wrong metal, especially a solid copper planchet, the result is a coin that breaks the rules of its own year. These coins weigh more, feel different, sound different when dropped. And under professional examination, they become explosive. Because a genuine transitional error doesn't just add value. It multiplies it. Then there are doubled dies. Not the cheap imitations you see online. True hub doubling. Letters that appear to vibrate. Dates that look like they're echoing themselves. Lincoln's profile with subtle doubling along the rim or beard. These errors are born at the very beginning of the die creation process, making them incredibly scarce. When combined with pristine condition, they become legends, and condition matters more than most people realize. A rare error in poor shape is interesting. A rare error in near-perfect condition is life-changing. Coins graded MS-67, MS-68, or higher exist in a realm most collectors never reach. These are coins with blazing luster, razor-sharp details, surfaces untouched by circulation. And when a rare error meets a top-grade slab from a major grading service, the market doesn't whisper anymore. It roars. Most people assume all valuable coins have already been found, that the ship has sailed, that collectors in the 1990s and early 2000s scooped up everything worth owning. But that assumption is dangerously wrong, because billions of pennies were released into circulation, stored in banks, sealed in rolls, forgotten in estates, passed down unknowingly. Even today, original 1991 D bank rolls surface untouched, and every unopened roll is a mystery. Every jar of pennies is a lottery ticket no one bothered to scratch. There are documented cases of collectors discovering major errors decades after a coin's release. Not because the coins changed, but because knowledge did. Tools improved, awareness spread, and suddenly, ordinary pennies began revealing extraordinary truths. The reported $814,000 sale didn't happen because someone got lucky. It happened because someone paid attention, because they weighed a coin, measured it, questioned it, verified it, and refused to dismiss it as ordinary. And here's the twist most people never consider. The value ceiling may not be fixed. As collectors age, as supply tightens, as fewer pristine examples exist, prices can climb. What sold for hundreds of thousands yesterday could command more tomorrow, especially if a previously unknown error variety emerges. Especially if a new discovery rewrites what we thought we knew about the 1991 descent. That's why urgency matters. Because every day, pennies are melted, lost, spent, destroyed. And with each one, the pool of potential discoveries shrinks. The longer you wait, the fewer chances remain. Now imagine this. You're sorting through old coins one quiet evening. No expectations, just curiosity. You pull out a 1991 D penny, then another, and one of them feels heavier, or the date looks strange, or the color doesn't match. Your heart rate changes. Your hands slow down. You grab a scale, a magnet, a loop, and suddenly, the room feels different. Because you realize this might not be a penny anymore. It might be a pivot point. This is the moment collectors live for. The moment between doubt and confirmation. Between ordinary and extraordinary. And even if the odds are slim, the stakes are undeniable. Because no investment portfolio offers this kind of upside for 1 cent. No stock, no crypto, no lottery ticket. Just knowledge and attention. That's the real secret of the 1991 D Lincoln cent. It rewards the observant, the patient, the curious, the ones willing to look twice when everyone else looks away. You don't need a vault. You don't need insider connections. You need awareness. A scale accurate to 2 decimal places. A basic understanding of mint errors. And the willingness to question what you've always been told is worthless. Imagine that same penny quietly carrying a price tag that could rival a luxury home, or even change the course of a family's future forever. Because buried inside everyday pocket change is a coin most Americans have walked past their entire lives. A coin struck in a year when mistakes slipped through the cracks. A coin so deceptive, so ordinary looking, that millions were spent before anyone realized what they had. This is the story of the 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent, and once you hear what makes it different, you may never look at your spare change the same way again. At first glance, it's just another Lincoln penny. Abraham Lincoln facing right, liberty to the left, in God we trust across the top. A date, 1972, resting quietly beneath his portrait in mint mark, which means it was struck in Philadelphia. And that's exactly where the danger lies, because when a coin looks ordinary, it survives. It circulates. It hides. It waits, while collectors chase shiny rarities and commemoratives locked away. In cases, this penny lived in pockets, purses, and cash registers. It paid for coffee. It tipped parking meters. It disappeared into couch cushions. And in doing so, it escaped attention until someone looked closer. Act 1 ends with a simple question that changed everything. What if this penny isn't normal at all? Because the 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln sent is home to one of the most famous and dramatic minting errors ever discovered on a U.S. coin, an error so bold that once you see it, you can't unsee it. The doubled die. This wasn't a small flaw. It wasn't a microscopic slip. It was a full-blown duplication of the design, caused when the die used to strike the coin was impressed twice at slightly different angles. Letters that appear to vibrate. Words that look like they're echoing themselves. In God we trust appears doubled. Liberty looks like it's shouting. The date, 1972, splits into a ghostly twin. This isn't doubling you need a microscope to see. This is doubling visible to the naked eye. And that's why it matters. Because bold errors are rare. And rare mistakes are where fortunes are made. But here's the twist most people never hear. The 1972 double die cent wasn't discovered immediately. Thousands, possibly millions, entered circulation before anyone realized what had happened. By the time alarms were raised, it was already too late. The coins were everywhere and nowhere. Some were worn down. Some were lost forever. Some still exist today, hiding in jars, drawers, and inherited collections. And when one surfaces in strong condition, the market reacts hard to in circulated grades. These coins already command serious money. In crisp, high-grade condition, they move into five-figure territory with ease. But then comes the level that changes lives. Because a handful of 1972 no-mint mark double die cents have survived in near-perfect condition. Razor-sharp details. Original luster. Nowhere. Coins like that don't just sell. They make headlines. Private transactions and reported market activity have pushed elite examples into astonishing territory. Prices whispered in collector circles, debated in auction halls, and splashed across numismatic news. Sales reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars. Figures as high as $464,000 tied to top-tier examples. Extraordinary combinations of condition, eye appeal, and authenticity, and that's where the rumors begin to swirl. Because when a coin reaches that level, it stops being just a coin. It becomes a legend. Some experts speculate that a truly flawless specimen, a perfect storm of strike, preservation, and verified error, could cross into seven figures under the right conditions. A single cent potentially worth millions. That idea alone is enough to make your pulse quicken. But before you rush to the coin jar, there's more. Because not all 1972 pennies are equal, and not all double dies are created the same. Many coins show machine doubling, a common, worthless effect caused during striking. Flat, shelf-like, dead on arrival. The real 1972 double die is alive, rounded, bold, separated. It looks like the coin itself is trying to speak twice. That's the difference between a curiosity and a retirement story. And here's another layer most people miss. Philadelphia didn't use mint marks in 1972. That means every genuine double die from that year carries no mint mark at all. No easy shortcut. No instant giveaway. You have to look. You have to know, which is why so many were spent without hesitation. Think about how many hands touched those coins. Think about how many chances they had to be noticed and weren't. That's not coincidence. That's opportunity disguised as boredom. Act 2 deepens. The suspense tightens. Because the real scarcity isn't how many were made, it's how many survived in collectible condition. Copper is soft. Pennies were fast. Every year in circulation steals value. So, when a high-grade example emerges, especially one authenticated and graded by a top service, the bidding becomes emotional. Collectors don't just want it, they fear losing it. That fear drives prices beyond logic, and every record sale resets expectations. Suddenly, that penny isn't just rare, it's a benchmark, a measuring stick for what hidden change can become. Now imagine this: a relative passes away, a jar of old coins is left behind. Most people dump it at the bank, but one person pauses. One person looks closer, and there it is, the doubling, clear as day. That moment, right there, is why this story matters. Because the next discovery won't come from a museum vault, it will come from someone who decides to check. Act 3 begins quietly, but ends loud. Because the truth is uncomfortable. These coins are still out there. They didn't vanish. They weren't recalled. They weren't destroyed. They were spent. And that means every old penny you ignore carries a silent question. History doesn't always announce itself with trumpets. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer. The 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent isn't just metal, it's a reminder that mistakes can become masterpieces, that overlooked things can become priceless, that wealth doesn't always come wrapped in gold. Sometimes it's copper, sometimes it's worn, sometimes it's already in your house. And the people who find these coins all say the same thing afterward. They almost didn't look at SO tonight. When you see a penny dated 1972, don't dismiss it. Don't assume. Don't rush past history. Tilt it. Study it. Let the letters tell you their secret.